guest presenter here today. This is Austin Leonard. He is a 2014 LHS grad and he's a current Harvard student. So he's here today to talk with you guys about his experience so far in Ivy League school, maybe a little bit about what it took to get there, and to answer any questions you guys have. So let's welcome Austin.
Okay guys, I'm just here, I'm going to give you kind of like a brief overview of what I've done, not necessarily to get in, but like some of the steps that I took along the way, and I don't know, life there, some misconceptions. There's not, like, especially around here, there's not a lot that's known about Ivy League schools and Ivy League caliber, I guess you could call them. So these are the Ivy League schools, and then up there you have like University of Chicago, Stanford, MIT, Caltech, Rice in the south, so Vanderbilt. They're all kind of in there, and not very many people from Lakeland specifically. I know there's some IA students here. I don't know about the IA per se, but there's not very many people from this area pretty much in general that end up going to these schools. A lot of people are just content with hanging out in the state, and they don't even apply to these schools, so they don't think it's possible. So I just want to let you guys know that it is possible. I did it. And I think a lot of people here are qualified, but don't ever take the risk in applying. So the admissions at the schools, it is highly, highly selective. Now, regular decision has a lot lower acceptance rate than early decision. And early decision, you apply by like November 15th. And when applying to these schools, you might consider applying early decision or early action. It could be called one of those two. If you look, I don't know if you guys can see in the back, but if you look at the regular decision acceptance rate, it's a lot lower, all these numbers here, than the early decision acceptance rate. So schools accept sometimes like 3 times as more students percentage-wise in early decision as opposed to regular decision. That being said, early decision can sometimes be binding. So when you're applying early decision, make sure you ask, or not ask, but look and see if it's a binding contract, more say. So if you apply to that school and you get in, you have to go there at that point. You withdraw all your other applications to other schools, and that's where you end up going. So that's the early admissions process, regular admissions, and researching which schools are the right ones for you is the best way to kind of like find your fit, save yourself time, get the best applications, all that kind of stuff, because researching what schools are right for you helps you eliminate the ones that obviously aren't right for you. And so if you want to apply to every single school in the Ivy League and you go through and you research which ones are your fit, they're in the correct location, they have the right programs for you, all that kind of stuff, you can eliminate the ones that don't fit that, spend more time on the ones that you do want to apply to, all that kind of helps out. And one thing that I found is that location is a factor in where you want to go to school. So coming out of high school, I mean, this is, I'd say, borderline rural, suburbia rural area. And I didn't think I was going to have like any problems going anywhere in school. So I go to Harvard, and Harvard is in Cambridge, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston. It's definitely a lot more city than this. It's not quite big city, but it definitely is slightly overwhelming at times. So if you guys have a chance, you should visit and see how you feel in that kind of atmosphere. I know I visited Harvard. I loved it. The dorms were great. Everything about the college made me just want to go there. It's hard to kind of get a feel for the living atmosphere, I guess. So location is hard to, I don't know, feel out when you're visiting. But keep in mind that that can be kind of, I don't know, difficult to overcome. One weekend I actually went up to Dartmouth. A lot of the Ivy League schools are in really close proximity to one another because the East Coast is really compacted, and Dartmouth is in the middle of nowhere, but it felt great. Like it was a really cool college. There's like one main street that goes down the center of the town, and it's just a really cool place to go. So researching for your best fit college, there's a couple websites that I know I use, like end of 9th grade, start of 10th grade, I started researching what I wanted to do for college. And Parchment is the one that Lakeland uses. That's how you send your transcripts. And they also have a lot of other useful stuff on there. And then CapEx is another one you can use. Kind of the same thing. They just give you admission statistics. They tell you like what kind of programs they have at the school, the cost, tuition, all that kind of stuff. So financial aid. That's one of the biggest things that was, I don't know, kind of holding me back from applying the first time, or not, well, before I started thinking about applying, because I didn't think that I could afford going to a school like this. They are very expensive on the name price. So the cost to attend Harvard every year is $65,000. That's tuition, living expenses, everything. And a lot of the other Ivy League schools and high academic or highly regarded academic schools are around like the same ballpark area. But financial aid is freaking awesome at these schools. So if your family makes less than $65,000 a year at Harvard, it's free. Like no questions asked. You submit all the FAFSA information, you go there, and you will not pay a dime out of pocket. I mean, there's going to be costs for like traveling and that kind of stuff, but you can't really get financial aid for traveling because that would be weird. And it's actually more affordable for me to go to Harvard than it would be for me to go to Michigan, Michigan State, Oakland, any of those schools. And that's something that is, I don't know, I take pride in that, but also I take pride in the school for that same reason, because they're trying to get everybody to go there. They want everybody to have the opportunity to get a great education regardless of your socioeconomic background. So each one, you have Brown, it's hovering right around like 75 to 80% of the cost to attend that the schools will just give you for going there. You don't have to apply for these. Financial aid is something that's given based on economic status. It is not merit-based, it's not athletic-based, any of that kind of stuff. It is solely economic need. And actually, no school in the Ivy League gives athletic scholarships. So just so you guys know that if you're going to be an athlete there, you're not going to get an athletic scholarship. Close this out. So applications. Applications are really lengthy for these kind of schools because they really want to feel out who you are and get like the best sense of what kind of students they want to accept. And you kind of need time to go through and get all of these applications done, especially if you're going to be applying to 7, 8, 9, 10 schools, something like that. So try to start at least a couple months before you plan on applying or finishing the application. So throughout your application process, the one thing that I found, and I've talked to a lot of my friends at Harvard and found out, like, you know, what did you do on your application to get in here? And a lot of people just kind of talked about being honest, you know, like in reality. That's what you have to do. You can't sit there and say, you know, what do these admissions people want to hear? You just have to give, I don't know, who you are in 1,500 words or less, or whatever the essay requires you to do. So the ACT and SAT, another thing with that is I know there's a lot of 11th and 10th graders in here. 10th graders, you probably haven't taken the ACT or SAT yet. 11th graders, you're going to be taking it soon if you haven't already. But I highly, highly recommend taking it several times. Unless you like ace it the first time, then you're good to go. But I say ACT and SAT as well because they're completely different tests that are both looked at in the same way in the eyes of college admissions. And so if you're maybe more fit towards the SAT, take that test. If you're more fit towards the ACT, take that one. If you don't know, take them both and find out, or take practice tests. Take something so you can get a sense of both. And don't be afraid to take it more than once. I know in total I took it 4 times. I took the ACT 4 times, SAT once, and the ACT 3 times in high school. I took it once in middle school as well. But each time I increased in the score. And so the first time maybe you had a bad day or something like that and you didn't get a full night of sleep. And there's a lot of preparation that goes into taking the test in the morning. I know I get a full night of sleep before. Like during the morning I usually listen to some nice calm music and drank a cup of tea to get some caffeine in me, read a book to get my mind going. Or not an entire book, but part of a book. And that kind of stuff is really important when it comes to taking the test. And this all goes back into getting into these Ivy League schools. And in your application, you also have to set yourself apart. So you have to find what makes you unique and what you bring to the table for these colleges. And at the same time, going back and being honest with yourself, you have to find what is honestly the best part about you and something that makes you you and that is going to I don't know, I guess diversity is the big word when it comes to college admissions, is what are you going to bring in terms of diversity to the school that nobody else could do? But you don't have to be perfect to get into any of these schools. I wasn't valedictorian. I didn't get a perfect score on the ACT or SAT. None of that kind of stuff. I didn't have perfect grades. I didn't have a perfect volunteer record, any of that stuff. But I got in because it's the right college for me. They wanted me to go there. They knew I'd be a good fit. And if, let's say you get rejected from a school, or you get deferred, waitlisted, any of that kind of stuff, don't look at it as, I'm not good enough. It's more than likely just them saying, maybe you're not the perfect fit with our school because of the people that we hold here. Because each school has a bit of its own persona, and maybe you wouldn't have been happy there. So it's a good thing that it wasn't on the table for you. So social life. A lot of people think, too, that the Ivy League schools are very, I don't know how to put this, they're not social. A lot of people think that, and that you have everybody sitting in the room, just hammering out homework, studying out all hours of the day. Nobody talks, any of that kind of stuff. It's just completely false. So at Harvard, that was one of the biggest surprises. I came, everybody was sociable. Everybody had something to say. They knew what they were talking about. They can sit down and have a conversation with you. They seemed more sociable than anybody I'd ever really met before, which is extremely surprising. And a lot of them are honestly down to earth. There's also this elitist idea about the Ivy League schools, and it does come through in some people. I know a few people that, this one guy, both of his parents are Pulitzer Prize-winning authors, and he plays croquet in the yard, and he ties a cardigan around his shoulders, and he talks down to you, and that kind of stuff. But not everybody, barely anybody's like that, actually. And it's a bunch of people that are there to learn and are there to enjoy 4 years of college, just like any other college, but it's at Harvard. So you're getting a lot of really good academics to come along with it, too. That being said, you're going to get great academics anywhere. Obviously, this is a little more high. It's in a higher gear, I guess we'll say. And there are nightlife nightlife social scenes. So at Harvard, we have our final clubs, and back in the 1920s, fraternities were made illegal at Harvard, and so they decided, we're going to make a final club. So it's essentially the same thing, and it's where a lot of the lower class girls go on the weekends. Guys aren't allowed to get in. Yeah, sorry, not lower class, underclass girls go on the weekends. But then there's also social life in the dorms, all that kind of stuff as well. And you have sororities and fraternities at other schools, Dartmouth, Brown, Yale. They all have this kind of stuff. MIT has a lot of it. And I don't know, everything is not really as it seems when it comes, or in terms of perception. It is very sociable. There's a lot that goes on. There are tons of clubs to join, more so than I can even count. Classes are off the chart. If at Harvard, if there's a class that you want offered and they don't offer it, you talk to someone, they'll make the class. So they really cater to your needs. And I know, again, I keep speaking about Harvard. I can't speak entirely about all the other schools because I don't go there, but Harvard has money coming right out of its ears. They have too much, or they have so much that they don't know what to do with it. And so you can apply for grants that they'll just give you $500 for a Super Bowl party or something like that. And they'll buy you pizza, and they'll give you cups, and they'll give you pop, all that stuff. And there's so much opportunity to use the money that they don't use to have a good time, even if you don't want to go to any of that kind of stuff. Okay, so that's that. That's the formal part. Does anybody have questions? I can tell you personal stories, any of that kind of stuff. Anything on your mind.
What's the academic workload?
Well, I don't know. There's a lot because it's college, but I don't think it's that much more than any other school. Maybe slightly more. I know one thing that I've heard is it's hard to get into Harvard, but it's easy to get out. So once you get in, it's kind of I don't want to say a coast, because it's certainly not coasting, but they give you all the tools that you need to kind of do well. So Harvard is known for its great inflation. most classes have a curve, and it's sometimes up to like 6, 7, 8% that the curve is weighting your grade. And so you can get like a raw score 80 or 82 and end up with an A- in the class. And the workload, like I did homework every night, not every night. I'd say about 4 or 5 times a week I was doing homework, and it was like 2 hours a night, 3 hours a night. Sometimes more if I had to like write a paper or something like that, but it's nothing too extensive. It was my first semester freshman year, so it's not quite, it's not the perfect litmus test because there's still going to be a lot more down the road, but first semester was not too bad for me.
What's the student to professor ratio?
I think at Harvard it's 12 to 1. All my classes were like really small. So what we did is you have a general class that people can enroll in. So I took biochemistry this year. My class was LS1A, and there were 650 people enrolled in the class. It's like the second biggest class in the college. Now that's lecture. So Tuesday and Thursday we did lecture with 650 people in a big lecture hall, and then every Wednesday we had section and lab. And my section only had 14 people in it. So that's where you like go over what you talked about in the lectures, and obviously you do lab work, that kind of stuff. So that was really nice because you got like the big feel where you can talk to everybody through the lecture, but then the section makes it so that you get hands-on with, and like the section is with a TF is what they're called, teaching fellow, and they're graduate students that are working towards a master's degree or a PhD that teach part of the course for you, and they go over, they grade all your assignments, all that kind of stuff, and you can kind of build like a teacher-student relationship with them as opposed to a lecture professor that just sits up there and talks at you. So that was really nice. Anything else? Yes?
So why did you say that for you going to school at Harvard ended up being a lot cheaper than like any other in-state?
Because of the financial aid system. So I do qualify. I'm in that range that it was fully paid for. And at U of M, a lot of, well, especially like U of M, they don't give a lot of scholarships based on merit. Or it's difficult. It's highly selective for their merit-based scholarships. And so a lot of those that I applied for, maybe I didn't get, or it wasn't quite enough to cover everything that I was going to have to pay to go there. And their financial aid system is not nearly as good as these schools because they don't have the endowment or the smaller student body that they can, I don't know, kind of divvy it up between. Because if U of M has, what is it, like 24,000 undergrads? 27,000 undergrads, and they have a smaller endowment than Harvard, it's going to be hard to give financial aid to all those students. And also I wanted to mention something, the financial aid. At Harvard, your family can make up to $250,000 a year and still get financial aid. And that is kind of insane, but understandable if you're going to be paying, like, the cost of attendance is $65K a year, so I get it. But there's financial aid for people of pretty much every economic status that is going to be going there. So any other questions about anything? Yes?
What was your ACT score?
Didn't mean to go back. So the first time I took the ACT, I was in 8th grade, and I got a 25. Second time I took it, it was junior year fall, and I got a 31. Then I took it through the school in March, I got a 32, and then I took it fall of senior year, and I got a 35. SAT, I can't remember. I took that right around the first time I took my ACT, and so I threw that one out the window or something. Yes?
So is there an advantage to taking both? Like, does Harvard pay more?
They look at your, wait, sorry, can you say, or what was the last part of the question?
Does Harvard take either or?
Yeah. All the Ivy League schools will take either the ACT or the SAT, and I think any school in the country should take ACT or SAT. There are schools now that are actually taking neither of them. They just don't want your score because they don't think it's fair to do objective tests like that, which is kind of BS, but whatever. The reason, I don't know, I feel like taking both gave me a better sense of which one I liked more. I definitely liked the ACT a lot more than the SAT because the SAT, I don't know if you guys have ever taken the SAT. So the SAT has a verbal section, I think it's called, where you have to know word definitions. I guess they changed it up now, so it's going to be not just word definitions, but usage in language. And so you can kind of define the word by the surrounding sentence. But it's becoming a lot more like the ACT. So all the schools will take either or. If you take both, they're just going to take your highest score. So like, if you put it into, I don't know, a conversion calculator, I don't know if that exists, but like 2,400 on the ACT equals 36 ACT. Like, there's equivalents down the line, and whichever one is higher through the conversion, they're going to take that, and that's the score that they'll look at. And they won't look at, you know, the ACTs that I took in the past. They just look at the highest score. Also, some schools will superscore. I don't know if you guys know what superscoring is, but they'll take the highest subsection from each ACT or SAT, and they're going to essentially like build a new test for you. So if you take the ACT 3 times, and each time, let's say each time you got a 30, or you took it 4 times, and each time you got a 30, but there's 4 sections to the ACT of those, or to those of you that don't know. Each time you got a 36 on a different subsection, your super scored ACT would actually be a perfect score 36. Harvard doesn't super score, but other schools do. So it can also be advantageous in that term to take it multiple times, because then you can get higher subsection scores to get a bigger super score. So, anyone else? Anything? Yes.
For ACT or SAT, do you know if they look at the most recent one or your highest one, like throughout?
Your highest one.
Okay, so like even if you get a 32, you take it, you can get a 30.
Yeah.
Look at the 32.
Exactly. So yeah, you could take it 10 times. If your first one was your highest, they'll still look at your first one. Yep.
What is something you wish someone would have told you about college?
Something. She asked, what is something that I wish someone would have told me about college? And I think it's, I don't know, how much, I don't want to say how much, but that I would miss home. I've been pretty independent my whole life, and I didn't think that it would be difficult to go out east and be 1,000 miles from home. And this is actually the first time I've been home this winter break. And it's kind of difficult in a sense that like I don't have my mom's home cooking every day, and I have to do everything on my own, stuff that I kind of just took for granted before. But you're going to get that at any college unless you're commuting. And it's, I don't know, it was kind of odd being thrust into a world where I didn't know a single person. And not bad, just different. And I've adjusted at this point, and I've completely, like, I don't want to say I made a new friend group, but I've made a whole lot of new friends to add to the ones that I've already had. And it's difficult to live on your own for your first semester, and even like for me, I thought I was going to be perfectly fine, but it's not impossible by any sense of the word. It is very doable, and after, I don't know, about a month and a half, it kind of kicks in where you kind of get a little homesick, and for a couple weeks you're like, geez, I just want to be home, because that's kind of when midterms hit you, and you're just kind of in this like hell where you don't want to be there. But then it all comes back, and you're like, oh wait, I'm at college, and this is great, and I'm getting a good education, and I love it here, and I have so many friends. And so I guess it's that, but it's hard to explain quite perfectly. There's a lot of dynamic in it. Anyone else?
What was your like extracurricular development like?
So a lot of people, again, you don't have to have like 500 hours of community service to get into these schools. And so like my extracurriculars, I didn't do like class officers. I did like volunteering around, I don't know, town here and there. I was vice president of NHS. I was president of the Spanish Club, which didn't really take off per se. It was kind of a crash and burn thing, but and then I worked too. I worked for 2.5 years. I worked for Huron Valley Schools. I did tech internship, and I think that was like, I don't know, one of my biggest things. I don't know if I'd call it, I guess it is extracurricular. I was getting paid to do it, but I think the commitment that I made to that kind of job, I don't know, looked good, I guess you could say, on the application, or it was in my favor because I'd been there for so long, and it was like a good job to have. But any job is going to look good on an application if you have it for a long time. It shows that you're willing to sit down and keep doing the same thing and make the commitment to that company or that person or business, whatever it may be. So yeah, it wasn't too extensive, but it wasn't nothing. Anyone else? Yep.
What percentage of Harvard students are minorities?
I think it's upwards of 50% at this point. I know there is a lot of, I don't want to, extracurricular, like minority-based extracurricular stuff. So there are a lot of clubs that are based minorities. There's a lot of, like we have the Crocodillos, right? I think that's what they're called. And it is an all-black singing group, and they go around the country. It's a cappella, and they tour. I know Dartmouth does a thing too. I don't think it's minority based, but they have like a touring a cappella group. They came to Harvard one week, or a pub outside of Harvard, and we all went there and listened to them sing, and it was really cool. But there's a lot to do with, I don't know, not integrating, but it's a lot more than here is what I found, and it's fully supportive for anybody that wants to go there. Any background that you come from, they're going to support you, and they're going to have a support system for you. So it's a great place for anybody that wants to go there. So, anything else?
What are you majoring in right now, and did that influence your decision to go to Harvard?
So I'm doing neurobiology, tentatively. And I know I want to do sciences. I want to do life sciences because I want to end up being like a doctor or a surgeon or a dentist or something like that. But that partially influenced my decision to go to Harvard, but in more ways than just, oh, Harvard has a good neuroscience or neurobiology program. So one of the reasons that I want to do neurobiology is a lot of my family members are diagnosed with MS. MS is multiple sclerosis. It's a degenerative disease where your myelin sheaths are kind of eaten away by your own body, and you go through a lot of pain. It's kind of like Lou Gehrig's disease in that you become paralyzed and you are going to die from the disease. And it's kind of insane to have, I have 4 family members on one side of my family that have the disease, and that's uncanny. And so I wanted to go somewhere that I knew I could research this disease and hopefully have enough clout and influence down the road that I can bring more, I don't know, knowledge to the disease and knowledge about it, I guess you could say. But I knew that Harvard was going to give me, A, the research facility, because Harvard is a research university, but also a liberal arts college, and that they have like general ed requirements. And so it was going to give me the money to research, it was going to give me the program to research, and the people around me that were going to help me get to where I wanted to be. But also down the road, Harvard does carry a lot of weight, the name, and that's going to open up doors for me if I ever want to research the disease, in like postgraduate studies. And that is, I don't know, really important to me. They do have a really good neurobiology program. They have really good life sciences programs. The med school is separate from the undergraduate program, but Harvard accepts more students from, they accept as many students from their own undergraduate program as they do from all other Ivy League undergraduate programs into their med school. And so they like to take their own students. And so I know that's going to give me an advantage in going to their medical school if I'd want to do that. And so that's, I don't know, one of the biggest reasons. And I don't know, I love the people there, so that was another big reason why I decided to go to Harvard. Mr. Barrow, I know you had a question.
Allison, I think an interview was part of your application process. Can you talk about that?
Yes. So a lot of the Ivy League schools will do an interview if they have an alum or it's not just alums. So after you graduate from the college or any of the undergraduate colleges, they'll ask you if you'd like to be like a school representative in interviewing applicants. And I obviously haven't done that yet because I haven't graduated from the college. But so there was a guy that lived in Ann Arbor, and he was like 65, he graduated in 65. And we just went to Highland Library, sat down, had a conversation for about an hour. And that interview process does go into the application, but they generally don't hold a lot of weight. That being said, it's a lot easier to have a bad interview that's going to negatively affect your application than it is to have a good interview that's going to positively affect it. So don't take the interviews as like nothing. Don't, where like shorts or well, maybe not. You can wear like shorts and that kind of stuff if you have it if it's warm. It's probably not going to be warm when you take the interview, but don't come in and just be like, hey, what's going on, guy? Like, give him a slap on the back, like, try to handshake him, that kind of stuff. Like, be formal, but it's really not that difficult to have, like, a good interview. And so I did an interview with Harvard and Princeton, and the one with Princeton, I actually had to go down to Ann Arbor and interview with that guy. And they're both my interviews were really laid back, casual. Like, I talked with the Princeton guy about football for like half an hour. And you don't have to talk about the schools. You don't have to really talk about anything academic. They just want to kind of get a sense of who you are as a person. And so if you just sit down and act honestly and you are a good person and you portray that, then it's going to be perfectly fine for you. Like, it's nothing to worry too much about, but don't let it be nothing. So yeah, that's that. Anyone else?
What would your GPA look like?
So through Lakeland, I don't know if do you go to Lakeland? Okay, so you know, like the weighted AP classes. So I ended up with a weighted GPA of like 4.26, but unweighted I had like a 3.93, and so I think they look at the unweighted GPA and the weighted GPA. And another thing is, a lot of schools across the country don't use the same like GPA system or GPAs at all. I know one of my best friends there, he went to school in like upstate New York, and they did GPAs based on a 100-point scale, which I don't get at all. I don't understand how it works, so I can't explain that. And then my roommate, who's from New York City, didn't have GPAs. They didn't rank their class. They didn't have a valedictorian, any of that kind of stuff. And so it's not going to mean everything. It is obviously good to do well in school because that's going to kind of like put you at that cut. The way that I look at the admissions, by the way, is you have a lot of people that are qualified applicants in terms of grades, and so that's kind of like the first step. But once you get there, you have to do like the subjective part of the application. So the essays, the extracurriculars, that kind of stuff that I don't know, sets you apart and makes you different. Something that, or like a hook, that's a big thing in the application is writing about what makes you different. So in my application essay, I wrote about when I was a kid, my dad died. He was 6, and so I talked about that and how it kind of affected my like life outlook and the paths I could have taken, but the path that I did take was the one that's gotten me where I am today. So GPA, I had a high GPA in high school, but it wasn't the highest in the class. It wasn't perfect. I still got in though, and so there's a lot that goes into it other than just grades. Yes?
Did you take any AP classes like in high school?
Yeah, I took, freshman year I actually didn't take any AP classes. Sophomore year I took AP US History. Junior year I took AP Chem, AP Lang, and AP Econ. And then senior year I took AP Bio, AP Lit, AP Psych, AP Gov, and AP Calc. Which, it sounds like a lot, but a lot of those classes aren't like terribly difficult. At least for senior year. Like AP Gov was pretty relaxed. And a lot of like the Gov stuff that we took in that class was, like the regular Gov class did everything that we did in one semester. And so it was actually a lot easier to take the AP class. So yeah, I did take a lot of AP classes. You don't have to take AP classes. It is looked favorably upon because they like to see strength of schedule. And if you're going to take a schedule that's going to be like, I don't know, hard, or not as hard, but like one of the harder schedules your school offers, then I don't know, they kind of like, oh, I think they'd rather have a student that took a bunch of AP classes with a slightly lower GPA than somebody that aced everything but took like all, the easiest classes they could take. It shows that you push yourself.
What aspect of your application is the one with the most weight?
That's hard to say, because I don't know the application process, because I haven't been on the inside of it. Like, I've been on the outside applying. I've never obviously done grading applications. So I think it's the subjective stuff. In my eyes, it's like the essays, extracurriculars, because everybody, I don't want to say everybody, but a lot of people that are applying to these kind of schools make the cut academically. And so if everybody's going to be making that cut, then how do you pick the right people? And that's by writing really good essays or finding the best essays. It's finding the people that, maybe have been through the most. Like I know a kid that he's from Tanzania. He walked to school 6 miles and back every day. He worked 2 jobs to pay for his school. He didn't have any money, and now he's at Harvard, and his whole life turned completely around. And I know another kid that he lives across the hall from me. His mom got pregnant with him when she was in 10th grade. His dad was in 11th grade. His dad was Salvadorian. His mom's Peruvian. And after his mom got pregnant, his dad was deported. And so he grew up with his grandma, who taught him arithmetic. And I say arithmetic, not just all math, because he's a whiz when it comes to using numbers. I can ask him, what's 89 divided by 17, and he'll tell you to the second decimal point. And it's because when he was a kid, his grandma would give him math questions, and if he got it wrong, she'd slap him on the hand with a ruler or a spoon or something like that. But just a great guy, and and he's also really good at all kinds of math too, not just arithmetic. But I think it's that kind of stuff that he went through something like that, and so that was what kind of brought his essay out and made him stand out. And he's also really good at math, and he's got all the academics done, but he's got something that makes him different. And I know a kid, my roommate started a company, and he did a clean water project in Africa. Holy crap. I've never heard of anybody doing something like that, and I would never have done it, but it's kind of, everybody has their own thing that makes them special. And I think that's what is the biggest part of the application. Anyone else?
What's the dorm life?
Okay, so dorms at Harvard, I think I've got the best dorm on campus. I live in one called Weld, so there's 17 freshman dorms. The freshman dorms are called halls. All the upper class dorms, so that's sophomore through senior year, are all houses, and they just give them those names. They're dorms. They're not sorority houses or any of that kind of crap. So I live in Weld Hall, and my dorm's awesome because we do these things. Well, there are entryways, and I'll tell you about entryways in a second. But we have 5 floors that are all interconnected like this, and our entryway, which is a subdivision of our dorm, is first floor and part of second floor. And so because we have our entire floor and just part of the second floor, together we all meld well together, and we see each other a lot, and we talk and all that kind of stuff. And so our dorm's really nice in a sense that everybody's kind of unified. All the entryways are unified, and we all unify together as well. Other dorms aren't quite as lucky because they have vertical entryways. And so what'll happen is you walk in a door, you can't go either side horizontally, you just go straight up. And that's your entryway. And so you have people on the first floor and people on the 5th floor that never see each other. And then you have to go into a different door to get into a different entryway. So you'd actually have to walk out the building and go back out. The dorm rooms themselves. So I live in what used to be JFK's room back in the 30s, which is pretty cool. Before they put an elevator shaft in, his room was actually part of my room for first semester. So our room is huge. We have 6 suite mates. It's me and 5 others. We have a common room. There are 2 singles, 2 doubles, and an in-suite bathroom. We have a big TV, and everybody comes to our room to hang out, and we all watch sports, and we do homework in there, all that kind of stuff. And especially freshman year, a lot of the dorms is where all the social life goes on, because on the weekends when you're not, well, a lot of people just don't study on the weekends, in all honesty, Friday, Saturday night, nobody really does that. When you're all just hanging out, doing anything you want to do, there's a lot of social life that goes on in the freshman dorms. When it comes to upper class houses, it's a little bit less, but there's still stuff that goes on there. So I really love my dorm. Other people not so much, but everybody likes their dorm, at least. I love mine. I love my room. I love my entry. I love everything about my living situation. I think I got pretty much as good as it gets. So, and all my roommates are awesome. So dorm life is pretty good. And then all the freshmen eat at Annenberg, which is this looks like Hogwarts. It's amazing. This giant 1600 wooden hall. You have stained glass all along the sides of it. And I wish I had a picture for you. I could look it up, but yeah, dorm life's really nice at Harvard. So, yeah. Anything else? Yep.
Did you apply early action or big decision for Harvard?
I did not. I did regular. The only schools I applied early to were Michigan and Marquette because they sent me a free application, so I did that. And also, if you qualify, you can get all free applications for colleges. You have to have like a certain income or below a certain income to qualify for it, but a lot of schools will charge $65, $70, $75 to apply to it, and you get those all waived. So just letting you guys know for the future. But I applied Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Dartmouth regular decision, and I got waitlisted at Dartmouth and Yale and then accepted Harvard, Princeton. So that was that. Anyone else? Is that it? Nope. That's
So there are quite a few 9th and 10th graders in here. What suggestion would you have for them if their longer-term goal is to get into an Ivy League school?
I would say don't do stuff just so you can get into the schools. Like, don't say, oh, I'm going to join this club so that it looks good on this application so that I can get into this school, because that, like, people will see through that. Do stuff that you're passionate about, care about school. I mean, don't care about school to an extent where you're going, like, you don't think about anything else, you don't have a social life, any of that kind of stuff. You want balance. Learn how to speak, learn how to talk to people, that kind of stuff. It's really important, especially when it comes to college. You're going to learn a lot of that kind of stuff. But I think that's one thing that's differentiated people, at least from Harvard or at Harvard, from a lot of the other people I've seen, is people there know how to speak. And that is really important, I don't know, to have moving forward. Don't stress too much about college yet. You still have 2-3 years to do, your whole life. You don't have to sit down and put everything in your life on the track to get into this school. Still do stuff, like always do stuff that you love, and do it with commitment and, I don't know, with zealousness and just, or zeal. Go after it, and I don't know, that kind of stuff. Like, don't be passive in a sense that you're just doing stuff to get in. Do stuff that you love, and that'll help you get into these schools. So that's that.
How many foreign language classes did you take?
I just took Spanish. So I started Spanish in 8th grade, and I went up to Spanish 5 senior year. I'm done with Spanish now. I took Spanish this first semester, and I had a TF. That was his first time ever teaching a class, so he graded really harshly, and, well, harsh in terms of Harvard, harshly. And it just, I don't know, it wasn't what I was looking for, so I figured I was done. I'm not taking language anymore. I'm focusing on science and getting all my gen eds out of the way. Fun fact, there's actually a kid at Harvard that speaks 23 languages fluently. Yeah, he's a hyper polyglot. He's got some, I don't know, natural gift for it, but he's kind of a jerk, so I don't like him. Yeah, so I mean, foreign language is nice to have, but by no means does everybody have, extensive foreign language going in. My roommate took 2 years of French, and that was that. And so he has to take one more language while he's there, and almost everybody has to take a language while they're there, because there is a language requirement. It is nice to kind of get it out of the way in high school, because I tested out on my Spanish, but I was like, oh, I may as well keep doing it and get a citation in it, but I decided not to do that anymore. And at Harvard, there's a whole different world of language that you can learn. At Lakeland I don't know about the IA specifically, but I know at Lakeland, like, there's Spanish, there's German, and Mandarin Chinese, which, is that still offered? Is there anything else? Sign language. Okay, so you have 4. At Harvard, I think there's like 45 different language classes. Like, I know a kid lives upstairs in my dorm. He's taking French Creole, or Haitian Creole rather, and there's 7 people in that class, and they just sit in this like little common room, and that's where they learn. I know people taking Portuguese. I know people taking Japanese. I know people taking French. I know people taking Belgian, Swedish, everything. And so there's definitely, I'd say do language in high school, but know that if you get into a school like this, you can always expand and try something brand new. You don't, like, I didn't have to stay with Spanish. I decided to, and now I'm done. So, yeah. Any other questions? Yep.
Do you apply for any scholarships outside of Harvard?
Like the local scholarships? Oh, well, okay, so I applied to, I probably applied to 8 local scholarships, which is you'll get it at like the middle of your senior year. Is that when you get it?
Yeah, if you're a senior, I'll be around your classrooms in February to talk about local scholarships.
Yeah. And they give you a list, and you can go on and you can see, like, there's a PDF online, and you can see the requirements for each one, and like when the application is due by, or where to send it, like the actual application. And so I applied for like 8 of those. I applied for like 3 national scholarships, or that I just like found online. And I think that's it. And then I applied to like, there's scholarships I applied to at Michigan, specifically for Michigan. Oddly enough, minus like the Michigan ones, I didn't win any of the scholarships. So just because you get into a school like this isn't like, oh, I can write this school on my application and they're going to accept it for sure. Like that's kind of what I did. I was like, oh, I mean, that's going to hold a lot of weight, and it didn't pan out for me. But it's okay because that money went to somebody that's going to be using it a lot more efficiently than I will. So I think I heard the bell, so we might have to wrap this up. Anything else?
All right.
I think we're good.
Thank you.